Well, I hope today has been good to you so far. I hope you are excited to study God's Word tonight. I tell you, we couldn't be doing anything better than studying God's Word. We ought to long to learn more about God and learn how we can be more obedient to God. And the book of Job, I tell you what, if it does one thing, it probably really it definitely stretches our thinking about God, which in turn, I hope, strengthens our faith a little bit and makes us more humble people. It's almost Christmas, I guess. Little over a week left, and Christmas is here. For a lot of people, like we said last week, this is a great time. It's like feelings of joy and happiness are just floating through the air for a lot of people. But for some people, like we said, this isn't a fun time of year, and it often causes people a lot of grief because they're thinking about their deceased loved ones that aren't going to be with them. And for those people, we definitely need to be mindful of in our prayers. But tonight we're in Job chapter 29. We finished Job chapter 28 last week, which was the hymn of wisdom. We talked about, you might remember, where can wisdom be found, and true wisdom is fearing God. That's how humans can find wisdom. And we saw how great and powerful God was, because God, nothing's hidden from God, and that includes wisdom. God knows where wisdom resides, and He used wisdom in the creation of the world, but He also, we can observe wisdom by looking at, the wind and the rain that He set limits on, and other things that we learn from chapter 28. But in Job chapter 29, Job is going to explain to us again that he is innocent and he doesn't deserve the punishment and the suffering that he has endured so far throughout the book. Job is taking an oath in chapter 29. And what that means is by taking an oath, he's trying to show everybody around him that he's innocent. Now, if he's lying, God should curse Job, and that should show everybody that Job is lying. But if Job isn't lying, then God, he should respond to Job and explain himself, really. That's in Job's mind. God ought to explain his ways and the reasons he has in afflicting Job. So chapter 29 is where we're at tonight. So if you haven't read chapter 29, please pause the video, go read chapter 29, and then we'll be ready to discuss chapter 29, verse 1. And Job again took up his discourse and said, "Oh, that I were as in the months of old, as in the days when God watched over me." So what is Job doing? Well, he's reflecting on a period of his life that seems far gone now. Job remembers a time when he had blessings from God. You remember his children were around him. He had a great household. He had many lives. He had a lot of animals. His livestock, they were great in number, like we said. He had an honorable position in the community. He was respected. He was a good leader. In fact, you could argue that he was one of the best. But like we said, that ship has sailed, or that time of life, that seems to be gone. And because of that, it seems that God has just left Job by himself, and he's nowhere to be found. Job, in reflecting on that period of his life, he said, "When his lamp shone upon my head, and by his light I walked through darkness." Well, there was a time when God seemed to illuminate Job's path. In difficult times in Job's life, Job didn't have to wonder the path that he was walking down, because God was so good to him that he showed him the path that he ought to be walking. And because of that, Job was walking in the light. And because he was in the light, what might that signify? Well, he had great blessings. and he found safety and security in the arms of God. But now God, like we said, he's hidden, he's nowhere to be found, and Job feels like he's in the darkness. In verse 4, he says, "As I was in my prime, when the friendship of God was upon my tent, when the Almighty was yet with me, when my children were all around me." So Job was at a point in his life that he enjoyed life. He enjoyed everything about life. And now it seems at this point in the book, Job loathes life. He wants to live, but he knows he's about to die, and he's miserable. He's in pain. So that's why he wants God to answer him and to rid him of his terrible misfortune. But what we also see is there was a time when he felt that he had a very intimate relationship with God. And because of that, he was able, like we saw in verse 3, he was able to walk in the light, but he was able to take counsel from God. Nothing bad seemed to happen at Job at one point in his life because God was so near to him. But it doesn't appear that way to Job anymore. Also, we see when my children were all around me. Well, what's a sign of blessing in the Old Testament? Well, you have a great number of kids. Well, that was the same with Job here. Job had so many kids. Like we said, everything looked good for Job once upon a time, but not anymore. Verse 6, "When my steps were washed with butter and the rock poured out for me streams of oil." So again, we see how blessed Job was. This "when my steps were washed with butter," that seems kind of odd, but Job had a great number of livestock, and because of that, he had a great amount of curds, and that was a food that people ate. But Job seemed to have had so much of it that he could wash his feet with it. So that's just another way of saying Job had a lot of it. Well, "and the rock poured out for me streams of oil." Well, oil was very valuable in the ancient world because people cooked with it. It was used sometimes for medicinal purposes, but it was used also to light lamps. It was like the fuel for the lamps. Well, Job, he had the resources. He had them. And in his mind, that was because he was blessed by God. But he's no longer. "When I went out to the gate of the city, when I prepared my seat in the square, the young men saw me and withdrew, and the aged rose and stood. The princes refrained from talking and laid their hand on their mouth. The voice of the nobles was hushed, and their tongue stuck to the roof of their mouth." So what we know is the area outside of the gate of the city was a major area in the ancient world. Many things took place. You could see people there trying to sell you things, but not only could you see people selling you things, apparently from the book of Job, we see that you could see kids playing with other kids and doing all these different activities. But not only that, you also had the elders there. And because there were so many people there, the elders, when they had to judge a dispute, they could maybe grab a few people, and those people could act as a jury, and the elder would act as a judge, and they could judge a dispute and decide what was right or what was wrong and what needed to take place. So the gate of the city, lot of activities happening at the gate of the city. Well, Job, he would go out to the gate. And when he went out, he received a greeting that many people didn't receive. When Job walked out and everybody saw Job, the children stopped playing and they went somewhere else. They respected Job. People who were old, they stood up to show their respect for Job. And the princes and the nobles, they ceased from speaking. So all eyes and all ears, they're on Job. Why? Job's important. When the ear heard, it called me blessed. And when the eye saw, it approved. People liked Job. They blessed Job. They approved of Job. Well, why? Because I delivered the poor who cried for help, and the fatherless who had none to help him. People respected Job because he was a man that sought after righteousness. Job wanted to be righteous. He wanted to do the right thing, and he wanted to do it always, and people noticed that. And for the people that were often taken advantage of, like the widows, because they have no man in their life to defend them, not just their husband, but like any man that could defend them after their husband died, or the orphan who has nobody to depend on to further his life. These people are viewed as lowly members of society. Job took notice of them. I mean, this whole section that we've read so far is to show us how good of a guy Job actually is. The blessing of him who was about to perish came upon me, and I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. Yeah, again, look at all these people that are very low in society in terms of how people viewed them. Job takes notice of them. I put on righteousness and it clothed me. So notice Job sought after righteousness, and in turn righteousness clothed Job. There's no question that Job was a righteous man. We're not doubting we're not doubting his moral character. There's no doubt here. Now, that hasn't been the case so far since he's been suffering, because the friends noticed that he was, and while there might not have been a doubt in people's mind at one point in time, the friends, there's a doubt in their mind now. Well, maybe Job's done it. Maybe Job's... No, not while Job's reflecting on his past. Nobody doubted it, it doesn't seem. My justice was like a robe and a turban. So Job, because he sought after righteousness, he was also a man of justice. Now, we can see that from the fact that he helped the widow and the orphan, because people would definitely want to take advantage of them. And when Job had the opportunity to make a judgment, he made the right judgment, and he wanted to make the right judgment. Now, you can infer from that, I guess, as whatever you would want to infer from that, but what seems to be the case is that not all judges were like that. Not all people sought after righteousness, and not all people sought after justice. And when it came to the widow and orphan, they would, devise these evil schemes against them so that they could take advantage of them for their own gain. And guess what? Because judges are probably wealthy people, it doesn't matter who's going to question them, because they have the means and the resources to quiet people that kind of get upset. But not Job. I was eyes to the blind and feet to the lame. I helped people that couldn't see do things that they couldn't do. I helped people that couldn't hear do things that they couldn't do because they were deaf. So Job, we've seen, is righteous. He's a just man. But he's also a man of compassion. I was a father to the needy, and I searched out the cause of him whom I did not know. Again, Job gets down to the bottom of things. I broke the fangs of the unrighteous, and I made him drop his prey from his teeth. Now, again, we go back and we think about people that might not be people that seek after righteousness, and they definitely, if they're not seeking after righteousness, there's good possibility they're not seeking after justice either. Well, Job makes sure those people get what they deserve. It's not enough for Job to free the oppressed, but Job wants to fully eradicate the oppressor. He wants to get rid of them so that they can't hurt anybody else. He wants to bring them down off their high and lofty pedestal. This is a guy that I want to be like. I think other people would want to be like that, I hope. Because those are characteristics that Jesus himself modeled. Jesus was a man that was righteous. He was a man that was he was a man of justice. Jesus was a man of compassion. Jesus noticed people that were just low. Then I thought, I shall die in my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the sand. Again, what do we have? Job thinks everything's good in life because he's blessed. My roots spread out to the waters, with the dew all night on my branches, my glory fresh with me, and my bow ever new in my hand. Men listened to me and waited and kept silent for my counsel. After I spoke, they did not speak again, and my word dropped upon them. So Job wasn't a man that you questioned. Job was so wise, and he seemed to have such a relationship with God that people saw it, that you didn't question Job. When Job told you something, you just did it because you knew you couldn't come up with anything better on your own. I smiled on them when they had no confidence. So again, Job's this man of compassion. You can see people that they just don't think they can go anymore. They don't have the strength to press on. Job just gives them a smile. And it's enough that the light of my face, he says, they did not cast down. It helped them. I chose their way and sat as a chief. And I live like a king among his troops, like one who comforts mourners. Look at Job. Look at his position, this honorable position. He's a man of wisdom. He is a man of power. He is a man that seeks after righteousness, after justice. He's a man of compassion. Look at Job. Job saying, look how, he's not doing it in a snarky way. He's not doing it to try to say, look how good I was, oh, praise me, praise me. It's not Job's point. Job's point here is, look, I really was a good guy. And this doesn't make sense that you're telling me that God is punishing me for some sin that I've committed in my life. You can't tell me the sin that I've committed. So what have I done? Well, you can't tell me, but here's what I can tell you and what you did know at one point. Look at me. I'm innocent. Well, that sets us up for chapter 30 next week, which will continue, and we'll hear some of his thoughts that are directed toward God. I hope you have a great rest of the week. And I can't wait to see everybody, not this Sunday, but next Sunday. I'll be gone this Sunday. So I can't wait to see everybody when I get back. I hope you have a great rest of the week. God bless.